My name is Stephen Wright, and I'm a diversity and engagement consultant with the Jedi Hub, which is an initiative supported by Gateway Association. My job is to work with employers to help them increase their workforce capacity by showing them different ways that they could actually hire from diverse groups. My white privilege, I think, in the workplace, I think is fairly prevalent, and that really affects how I approach different organizations. So I think over the years, I've really developed the ability to get into rapport with people. If we sit back and we really take a look at how inclusive workforces are right now, well, you'll really notice that there's a lot of white men there in leadership positions. There's very little representation from other diverse groups. And I think that's an important piece that we need to really think about, because the problem with leadership that's white and also a male is the fact that they've had so many privileges through their whole lives, is that the barriers that other people face are almost invisible. And I was chatting with a friend of mine that's Indigenous. Sarah and I were chatting, and then I was chatting with my boss, Hannah, about doing a podcast on it. And so my relationship with my friend Sarah is pretty tight. She's Indigenous, two-spirited. She's also very, very intelligent. And so we created a podcast, White Lives Matter Always. And it was about my actions as a white person engaging with Indigenous people. And when I went into that journey, I knew it was going to cause me a lot of angst and a lot of grief, because emotionally it was still really hard for me to comprehend all this. And, there's a lot of emotions involved. And that was one of the hardest journeys that I've ever been on in my entire life, because we did a really deep dive into white privilege and what it means, but what my relationship is. And so it was difficult for me, because my whole career, my whole life has been spent advocating for people. And so I never thought that I was racist. It just never came to me. And when Sarah said, well, that's a racist move, it was really difficult for me. It was so challenging. It was one of the most challenging things I've ever had. But it was important to me to understand and recognize my white privilege, because it's subtle, but very strong at the same time. And part of my struggle was, how come I spent my whole life learning about people? They were all lies. And that was the biggest con job I couldn't believe. And so that was my journey.